And we're on. Good evening. I would like to call to order the April 25, 2022, excuse me, Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. Under the guidelines for attending board meetings and Proclamation 20-28.15 in the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act, there does remain a prohibition on in-person meetings, but there's an exemption for public meetings that can comply with the guidelines for business meetings found in the miscellaneous venues guidance. That guidance permits meetings with no restrictions on capacity, no physical distancing requirements, and all now modified face covering requirements must be followed. The board values public participation and engagement in our meetings. We will continue to comply with all laws related to the Open Public Meetings Act and all current emergency requirements related to miscellaneous venues and COVID-19. If that guidance and those requirements cannot be met, the board must hold its meetings remotely and provide access via live stream. The board will notify the public of the location of its meetings through the meetings tab on board docs. At this time, it is planned that all future board meetings will be in person. Board meetings, study sessions, special board meetings will continue to be live streamed as well on the district's website. That's www.lwsd.org, and then there's a tab for board meetings in which you can live stream the meeting. If you're not able to live stream the meeting, you may call to listen. The phone number to do that is 425-936-2813, conference ID 37127. I will now entertain a motion to approve the April 25, 2022 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Stewart, seconded by Director Carlson, that we approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Got a little feedback tonight. The motion carries. The first item on the agenda are recognitions and proclamations. First, the first proclamation is declaring May 2022 as Arts and Education Month. I will ask Director Bleasner to read the proclamation.
Thank you. So I have the pleasure of reading the Arts and Education Month proclamation. To sort of begin, just in case you don't know, we did just finish the Reflections with PTSA, which is a big art component throughout our district. It is available on the website now to look at the items that were submitted through that, and so you can see them done in art, visual arts, drama, oh my gosh, music, film, and a few other options. So an excellent example of arts and education. So with that, the proclamation. Whereas the arts, including dance, music, theater, and visual arts, are defined as a core subject in Washington State's definition of basic education and considered an essential component of the complete and balanced education for all students, and whereas learning in and through the arts enables students to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, imagination and creativity, discipline, alternative ways to communicate and express feelings and ideas, and cross-cultural understanding, which supports academic success across the curriculum as well as personal growth outside the classroom. And whereas imagination and creativity are increasingly understood as critical capacities needed for success in the 21st century workforce. And whereas the arts can transform our schools into havens of creativity and exploration, places where students want to learn, teachers want to teach, and all members of the learning community are more engaged and motivated. And therefore, we, the members of the Lake Washington School District Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Arts in Education Month. So do take this opportunity to go see a drama put on by one of our local schools. There are several happening right now. Check out the arts or attend other activities in the local area. Lots of band concerts as well.
Great. Thank you, Director Bleasner. The next proclamation is declaring May 2 through 6 as School Nutrition Employee Week. I will ask myself to read that. Whereas nutritious meals at schools are an essential part of the school day, and whereas the staff members who prepare and serve school meals help nurture our children through their daily interaction and support, and whereas the staff of the district's Nutrition Services Department are committed to providing healthful, nutritious meals to the district's children, and whereas Lake Washington School District has partnered with Sodexo to provide students with nutritious meals options for more than 40 years, therefore, we proclaim We, the members of Lake Washington School District, do hereby proclaim the week of May 2 through 6 as School Nutrition Employee Week. Thank you to all our school nutrition employees. The next recognition we have is a proclamation declaring May 2 through 6 as Teacher Appreciation Week and May 3rd as National Teachers Day. I will ask Director Choi to please read that proclamation.
Okay. Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education and keep American democracy alive by laying the foundation for good citizenship. And whereas teachers encounter students of widely differing backgrounds, and our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students. And whereas Lake Washington School District teachers work to create learning environments that support the district's guiding principles of connection, value, and challenge. And whereas the teachers in Lake Washington School District deserve recognition for their hard work to help students achieve the district's vision of every student future ready. Therefore, we, the Lake Washington School District Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim May 2nd through 6th and Tuesday, May 3rd as Teacher Appreciation Week and National Teacher Day.
All right. Thank you, Director Choi. The next item on the agenda is public comment. The board welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. We dedicate 30 minutes at these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. And if you wish to learn about how to provide public comment at our meetings, we ask that you go to our website, www.lwsd.org/board/public comments, to learn about the process and to sign up to provide public comment at the board meetings. If you wish to provide public comment, we ask that you sign up by noon on the date of the board meeting. Comments will be offered in the order of sign up, beginning with speakers in person and concluding with written comments as time allows. And if you have any questions, please email publiccomment@lwsd.org. We have no in-person public comment tonight. We have a few people signed up to provide televised comment. The first I have is Michelle Sue. And Ms. Sue, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'll send her a message. Let's see here. Ms. Sue, if you can hear me, it's your turn. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing that. Well, we're trying to see if we have any technical issues here. In the meantime, the next I have signed up is, and Ms. Sue is writing me a message right now. Oh, she asked the next person go. David Kimball.
Let's see, I have to raise my hand.
There we are. We can hear you, Mr. Kimball.
Can you hear me fine?
Just fine.
Okay, here we go. Well, thanks for letting the guest kind of mosey in here. I'll probably send I think I should send my questions and do an email maybe to Harding, but I wanted to articulate them now while the board is there. And I'm in a small school district over here in South Kitsap County, so a couple of the questions. I'm going to be contacting several school districts throughout the state to ask some of these questions. The one that at first hand would be, do the board directors have their own private websites, and are they encouraged to maintain them and use them? These aren't directed to anyone in particular, perhaps to the superintendent, whoever answers questions that come up later. What is the board, are they making any changes to their open public meeting speaking policies with the changes that the legislator made? Because I see attendance and participation is no different, quite frankly, when there's these online meetings. Has your school district, being as large as it is, reached the top 5, or are you close to it? I mean, that's a thing this district's striving for. Does the school board rely heavily on their Robert's Rules of Order? Are they embedded in your district's board policies? And do this question's not a trick question. Does the board use Robert's rules to limit debate on consent agenda items or anything else? Those are the questions I wanted to get out there. This seemed most expedient to get it out there. So any answers that I could get back in writing later would be swell. I appreciate the opportunity.
Sure, thank you for coming tonight. Oops. That was my own fault there. Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Kimball. If you have, if you could email your questions to boardmembers@lwsd.org, and we will respond.
Okay.
Miss Sue is having some technical issues. She just sent a message, and it looks like she's exited the meeting. If she is able to rejoin, we will, in the next few minutes, try to take her public comment. It concludes those who have signed up to provide televised comment tonight. We have also received written public comment in advance of the meeting, and I am trying to find, Teresa, if you could direct me to where that is so that I could read it aloud. There we are. Thank you. We received written public comment from Sashama Marashi. They wrote, "My name is Sashama Marashi, and I have a freshman at Tesla High School. I write to you today to request the board members consider a late start time for all Lake Washington high schoolers. I am tired. Just a few more minutes. I am still sleepy. These are literally the same things." Hold on, let me just pause. Teresa, I see that Ms. Sue is trying to rejoin the meeting. Thanks. "These are literally the same things we hear every single day from our high schooler. My husband and I have been up until now." We received written public comment from. I'm hearing myself twice. "My husband and I have up until now put the onus on our young child to get up when it is expected of him and to step up to be ready for school. No questions asked. But after 8 months, the repercussions of lack of sleep have slowly but surely seeped into his other areas of life. Lately, he is beginning to choose to skip breakfast, the most important meal of the day, so he could get just 15 minutes of extra sleep. It literally breaks my heart to see him having to choose between sleep and breakfast. This was the final straw for my husband and I, and we decided to reach out with many other concerned Lake Washington School District parents. Since then, this has been an eye-opener, the most important of which is that there are so many other high schoolers who are struggling with lack of sleep, who sincerely want to do the best at academics, and who are fully aware of what lack of sleep does to their lives. These young kids are demanding that the adults in the room listen to them and do something about this. We have let them down for so long by ignoring their needs, their pleas for just an hour of extra sleep, just so they can be best prepared to learn. Don't we as adults owe them an answer with the best possible solution? Even if we can't provide an ideal solution, then at least an interim plan, in parens, late start on Wednesdays. What baffles my mind is that we make mental health issue a priority, but at the same time refuse to acknowledge this very real problem and do everything we can to solve it for them. The school board did an excellent job the last few years during the pandemic to facilitate remote and hybrid learning with so many different challenges. If that same energy and resources and the time and effort can be allocated to this problem, I'm 100% certain we can achieve the goal for our kids. So I implore the board members, please let's not kick the can down the road until next year yet again. Let's listen to our kids. Let's do what's right by them and give them a chance to be as fresh as they can before their day of learning starts." Signed, a very concerned parent of a sleepy child, Sashama Marashi. Thank you for writing. Ms. Sue, I see that you're able to log back in. Have you resolved your technical issues? Yeah. I sent her a message. And Ms. Sue, if you're listening to the live streams through the district's website, there is a audio delay versus the Teams meeting. That could be your audio problem. And your microphone is muted as well. guess you could type and I could read it aloud. That's an option.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. This is a follow-up to the prior comments about the high school start. I understand that there are potentially logistic issues, but the parents in the district are not aware of exactly what kind of logistic issues the school have. So there are lots of parents who are guessing, would it be like 3 bus rounds? Would it be 2 bus rounds? Would it be other things that just not enough of bus drivers? I think there are a lot of people who are just guessing. And then some parents who have been waiting for the school district to change their schedule for many years. And then their kids are going to graduate from high school, but they still haven't got any progress on this. So, and then in the last board meeting, many parents and students came in to make comments. And then the result from Dr. Homer was that the only thing the school district could do is to add a few questions to the questionnaire to the families. That's anyway it's going to go out. And then next year we're going to have some kind of study group. And then we will decide in the following year. I think that it's dragging so long. I mean, it's the efficiency, it's unbelievable, given that this has been happening for many years. And then many other districts have already done something. So I would plead the board and as well as the school executive branches to consider to make some progress to echo the prior parents' written comments. So for example, Wednesday as a date for students to catch up on sleep or to have 15 minutes of later start. I think the school district considered 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And then we just need people to commit to that. It shouldn't be this hard. Like, it's even harder than pulling teeth. I think the last meeting, even though the board and then the executive branch heard the comments, but then the result was that, sorry, we can't do it. Another year. And then this have been happening for many years, so that it's not the right answer. We need some kind of progress to be made. That's all the comments I have. I'm speaking not just on my own personal situation. I've been talking to many parents, and then there is a Facebook page with at least 80 parents joined in on the first day that Facebook page was opened. And then some kids high school students were considering do a protest, like say sleep in the first period for 20 minutes as a protest. I think that not every student want to skip 20 minutes of study to do that, but then just the fact that this was mentioned. And there was the Instagram pages showing kids sleeping in the first period. And then some teachers were just, take that as a fact of life. I mean, if I'm a teacher who prepared for the first period and then seeing the kids just dozing off and not able to concentrate, I think I would be discouraged. So I think that this is a known issue. And then it's not something that teachers want to see as well. And then many teachers, they live very far, given how expensive the houses are in the area, so that the teachers would also want to see something that later start could help their day. Also help them to be motivated to teach. If the
Ms.
kids
Sue,
are
if you
not
could
ready to
if you could just conclude.
study, then they're not ready to learn or teach. All right, that's all I have. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you for coming tonight. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Director Stewart, seconded by Director Carlson, that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Dr. Holman, will you please poll the board?
Director Bleasner,
Yes.
Director Carlson,
Yes.
Director Choi,
Yes.
Vice President Stewart,
Yes.
and President La Liberty.
Yes. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Operational Expectation Policy 8, entitled Communication to the Board. Dr. Holman, will you please just get us started on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And so tonight I bring to you a monitoring report for Operational Expectation 8, Communication and Counsel to the Board. The policy statement that leads into Operational Expectation 8 states that the superintendent shall assure the board is fully supported and adequately informed about matters relating to board work and significant district concern. And so this monitoring report, as presented, indicates that all 14 areas of the policy are in compliance or listed as NA, meaning not applicable. And the one area listed as NA is 8.14, which states, recommend for board approval school attendance boundaries that consider the impacts on students, families, and the community, and are appropriate to the effective and efficient operation of the district. As the board knows, the district did not seek board approval for changes to school attendance boundaries during this monitoring period. Thus, an NA is listed. And so OE8 monitoring report is presented to the board for approval this evening.
Great. Any questions from any of the board members on anything in the report?
Yes, I do have a question. In 8.4, which I'm now going to have to go look for and find, which is assure that the board has adequate information from a variety of internal and external viewpoints to assure informed board decisions. In reviewing through the evidence here, it's very clear there were lots of discussions. The question that I wasn't able to pull from the evidence written here was, did we get internal and external viewpoints? So my question would be, as you did those, what sorts of things through those did sort of highlight? For example, I know in the curriculum adoption pieces, when we get those, there's a huge curriculum committee that's actually engaged with multiple stakeholders and how it's done. And then my question, like in the budget, for example, what are the examples of how we get multiple stakeholders through that? So I'm just throwing that to you.
And so thank you, is the question, what were the outcomes or the demonstration that those activities occurred?
Well, the indicator of compliance is information from a variety of internal and external viewpoints is used. So as I read this, I was looking for where were the internal and external viewpoints that were used. That was my question that I was putting out there.
And so I just want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. So let's just take the first school improvement plans. And so the board receives school improvement plans on an annual basis and is required to adopt those. As part of the regulations around school improvement plans, schools are required to engage both internal staff and external parents and community in that process. And that's why my question is the question about what were the outcomes related to school improvement planning processes related to input? So
No, it was actually what type of input was actually received in regards to it.
Okay. So that's an overarching question for 8.4 in general. What was the input received?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain we had multiple viewpoints put into it. I just wanted to clarify that that was true as I read it, because I don't see it written here. Does that make sense?
It does.
But if you don't know that, you don't know that when you read this. Like the SIPs, if you're not aware of the whole process, it wouldn't be clear there. The budget, there are pieces of that we do internal and external, but I do think our external is pretty limited on the budget process. We do a public hearing, and that's about it. So it might be interesting to think about how we could do that a little differently. That doesn't play into compliance.
Correct.
It actually is just potential opportunities for improvement to be able to take it a little further.
Yeah.
But that doesn't draw it into compliance, which is why I was asking.
Great.
Can I ask a follow-up clarifying? So I guess to your point, Director Bleasner, so for example, for the final item on there for the Facilities Advisory Committee, you framed this as sort of question, but I'm going to rephrase it as an ask. Is the ask that it's specific as, okay, so what was the external viewpoint provided as part of the, how does that achieve the external viewpoint indicator that we're asking for. So, for example, not to tell you how to draft this next time, but saying that the facility advisory committee included members of the community, parents, teachers, et cetera, and that was the input that was provided to the board through that committee. Is that what you're trying to capture with the question? Yeah.
That is what the policy is trying to capture.
Yeah.
And it's, again,
Agreed.
on the board, I know what's happened because I remember the presentation and all of it. It's just not written there very clearly, so I wouldn't pull it out of compliance for any reason.
Okay. I also agree with Director Bleaser on that. Any other questions from the board?
The only other question I have is on the SIPs, and I don't know if this is the place to do it or later. I know we're provided them consistently. We've tried different ways in which to make them more useful to the board and being able to use them as information going in. I'm not sure I have not felt that I have succeeded at being able to get good information from the school improvement plans. And looking that over, I know there are different methodologies utilized in different school districts. Issaquah School District utilizes a learning community model in which to discuss them. North Shore uses some school visits in which to do so. Just something to think about and getting those internal and external viewpoints through those SIPs.
Okay, noted. We used to do a learning community summary for the board. We've done presentations to the board. Are all of those things that were helpful in understanding the SIPs, or are you thinking beyond those in terms of process? And we've talked about this previously, some of the different methods that we know other districts use.
So far, of the ones we've used, I still haven't felt like they have been beneficial enough. In conversation with other boards around, I do think the concept of bringing together the whole learning community in the different ways and having that discussion around those sorts of things and topics seems to have been really beneficial. We can have a conversation with Issaquah more to learn about. I know they just shifted it as well. So I don't have a good answer to it. I just know in trying to really sort of get to where the school improvement plans are and that information from our side, we're not quite there yet.
Great. I have some ideas for how to provide that, just given the work we're doing in planning for next year, aligning some district-level indicators, school-level indicators for our strategic work that really does relate to school improvement plans and how we could provide different voice to talk about those activities at the school levels for the board. So, yeah, we can definitely
I would
do some
encourage
things.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, any last yes, Director Carlson?
So on broadly, here in 8, we're talking about communication and council, and most of it is framed in here as the actual dialogue. The one thing that has been, it got awkward for a while was having a dashboard where we could go and ask without having to pester someone in the system. It's getting better. We're coming back up, but we as board members still don't have a unified place that you start looking for stuff. Board Docs Pro, if I want to look back and see what was the last time we discussed enrollment, I can find the last time we discussed enrollment, but I can't find current enrollment data through Board Docs Pro. So I would like to get back to having a dashboard or a cockpit as a school board member where I can ask basic questions of the data without having to ask you for, how many kids took the AP bio test last year. That's the sort of question I should not have to pester an administrator with. So, and I'm pretty sure it's in there. But having something where newest or oldest surviving board member, both of us should be able to find what we're after in that space as best we can. And even Mark should be able to do it.
I'll get an update from the team around that because as they're transitioning systems, as we know. And
exactly.
My guess is they're pretty close to where they want to be. And so
right.
At a minimum, maybe just 30 minutes of training for the board to know where it is and what it is and
right.
how to get questions answered.
Because I think it's back in SharePoint now from Power BI, but I'm not 100% certain. And just having a link that was always, here's your current place that you should be going for data would be nice.
And I think one of your comments a couple weeks back was if you could have that linked in board docs, which is the primary place where board members are accessing information, then you always know where that is, so.
And when you do offer the training session, I'd suggest also having a narrative that can go back, some people can go back to, is 6 months later, just in case they're not sure, and they, rather than having to call you up and say, what was on page 3? I think you ought to have us interrupting your day that way.
Yeah. If I had my druthers, it would just be a tab at the top. We've got featured meetings agenda.
Right.
I want a tab that says data. Anyway,
And to be quite frank, if the two more senior members of the board can't figure it out, and the least technical one can't, there's all sorts of people out in our community, parents, who are probably in the same boat. Their abilities probably transcend ours.
yeah. So anyway, this is outside of the formal OE8, but it's something that's definitely related to it. Thanks.
I actually think it falls right under 8.8, where all members have equal access to information, so.
Any questions on the report? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve the monitoring report for policy OE8, communication and counsel to the board as presented.
Move
Which-
approval.
Okay, there it is. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Director Carlson, seconded by Director Blesner. Any comment from the board on the motion?
I was wondering, before you pull the board, some of this was, so the perfect example is 8.4, where literally I just haven't had the tenure to experience the level of information sharing and communication. Therefore, is it possible for me to abstain?
Or you could request clarification for those things to confirm that you see that it is in compliance.
I just didn't want to necessarily take the time to go through all of that, just because it was prior to my tenure, so I understand. I guess I just don't know what the process is for that.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. You can vote however you please.
You can. In general, we don't line item abstain from things. It's either the whole or the parts. But it's a comment that's always worth providing back. If there's something you're a little bit uncomfortable with, I'm not sure I understand this part. A, that's a question for us, if we can explain it. And B, it's a question for John. Why don't you explain it?
I just feel like a lot of this has to do with history, right?
Yes.
Of communications and information sharing and knowledge that I just was not a part of. So therefore, I don't feel comfortable, one way or the other.
Yeah.
But it brings up a good point of how to be clear within this report, regardless to the background knowledge brought to it, in which to be able to say something is in compliance or not. So I think that's a very good insight to be able to, so that might just be a piece of the comment that's made, is to ensure that any new member reading can follow the history that might be there as well.
I agree. Any other comments, Director Blesner? It looks like you do.
Well, I just wanted to, with 8 point, no, not 8.3, where did I have to, sorry. See, I had it written down, I was trying to follow it. It might be 9. 2 seconds, I'm sorry, I had it written. .3. I actually, this is just a kudo that I wanted to say, and along to the work that was done in this area, especially over the last legislative session. So I think the additional work with the legislature to keeping the board informed of the different movement that was going on there and any budgetary impacts, since the majority of our budget does come from the state, so being actively engaged there to be able to work upon what potential financial impacts come from. So I just want to make sure that that gets called out and that we continue that type of work that's going on.
Okay, any other comments?
Okay, I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
8.7 on information provided. Appreciate the presentation materials, wondering if it'd be possible to get study session materials prior to the study session. Often they are not posted. That would be helpful in which to do so. But otherwise, thank you. Appreciate the report. And at this point, everything is in compliance. But I do think the historical piece needs to be addressed as we think through these things to make sure we do capture it most effectively.
My comment is not well formed, but I will make it anyway. It's a wonder. It's a wonder, not a comment. I wonder whether the board briefs format that we have used since I've been on the board for transmitting information to the board is the best and most efficient way to do it and most accessible. I'm not saying I say this is a wonder without any insight into what would be better. It's just something the shift to moving it to board docs has actually made it, as opposed to being transmitted by email, it has been a better shift. That has made it actually easier for me to access and find and be able to, rather than particularly when trying to find an older board brief, it's a lot easier just to find them all right there under one tab. There's still a few too many layers for me, I find sometimes, to find the information. Or it feels like there are. But all that to say is I don't have a better idea, and I don't know that one exists. Just a wonder. It works fine. That's what I'll say. But maybe it could be. I'm not sure. Okay. Any other comment? Okay. Then I will poll the board. All those in favor of the motion to approve the monitoring report as presented, please signify by voting aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
One abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just to be clear, Director Sage, Director Sage, woof, Director Choi abstained.
Let it be noted there wasn't.
That was something there.
Let it be noted that it wasn't Director Stewart with a bad memory for names.
That was something. Okay. I wonder how a red face shows up on the screen there. Okay.
Magenta.
Was that captured? Okay. Okay. The next item on the
Quick
agenda.
question before we go on to the
Yes.
next item, as to who will write the summary.
Yeah. So how we did this for the summaries that are on the agenda for this meeting is Teresa has been ever so kind as to do, let's call it 99.9% of the work in typing them up, and then has sent them to me for review and finalization, which takes very little time. So we'll continue with that process.
Excellent, thanks.
Yeah. I guess I didn't ask, Teresa, are you okay with that process? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that there's
Yeah,
a
really,
built-in
really
process.
appreciate it.
So that's good.
She
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah. And yes, I was going to actually say that when we got to those. Thank you for doing that. The next item on the agenda is operational expectation 9, communication and engagement with the community. Dr. Holman, could you please present that, please?
Absolutely. So tonight in your packet, you have monitoring report for OE9, communication and engagement with the community. The policy states the superintendent shall assure that the community is informed about the condition of the district and engaged in defining and supporting its direction. So the monitoring report is presented and indicates that all 4 areas of policy are in compliance. So it's presented to you tonight for approval.
Okay. First, any questions from the board on the monitoring report for OE9? And just to remind everyone for process, asking for questions now, I will then entertain a motion and we'll take comments after the motion is pending. Unless, well, first, are there any questions on any of the information presented first? And
So I did have questions. I'm not sure actually if it belongs here or if it was elsewhere, but in regards to this piece, how are you reaching non-English speakers and ensuring that they have capacity to be involved and engaged?
.2, I think.
And I was doing that in regards to 9.1 is where that sort of fell.
It really does, when I think about 9.2 family engagement, it feels like that's really where it should fall. There are, as the board knows, there's, multiple ways to communicate with our families. One of the ways is, anytime we send a family communication out, we send information in the header of our communication to families that really does drive them to our website, which then provides an accessible experience for them. There's other ways. We have not listed them here in the report.
Okay.
Any other questions or follow-up questions?
Mine's merely more of a comment.
Okay.
I've actually got
Yeah,
one
Dr.
question.
Carlson.
So in 9.2, the family engagement across the last couple of years has been challenging and exceptional. And so the question I have here is less about the details of evidence of compliance, but rather the plan for going forward. There were a lot of outreach sessions that we ran with various groups in the community where I feel that we had much greater attendance from those groups than we've ever had from in-person sessions. Is that something that is planned to be extended into the future? Is that part of your planning process?
Can I summarize your question of, are we going to continue to use remote meetings as a strategy for engagement? Absolutely, yes.
Director Stewart?
I do have a question. Since the inception of Let's Talk, this is the first time I can recall even seeing 4 lines that summarized it, the number of messages. My understanding was that when we instituted Let's Talk, there would be regular updates of topics, issues that were addressed, how the issue was handled, what was done with it. Parents, to be quite frank, see it as a black hole. It's unfortunate because I think it's a great tool if it works right. They feel some messages we'll get back to once they understand that it takes a while to get the right person to the right place. But then when they get the information, it seems to be a canned answer. As a communicator, I know this is difficult, very difficult. But if we're going to have the tool, we need to be able to assure parents it's actually worth their trouble. And we need to know what the topics are. To be quite frank, what the topics have been, in the last 6 months, have they changed from the previous 6 months?
Dr. Choi?
So reading through these and then listening to the public comment today by Ms. Sue begs to raise the question of these are established methods of communication kind of around existing programs or existing, programs and activities that the district is currently involved in. But if there was something like an issue that the community wanted to bring forward of concern or something that they would want to propose to change, such as later school start times, I guess according to members of our community, doesn't seem to be the flow of information. or communication that is outlined here. So then the question would be, one, does that fall within this policy? And if so, I think that it's missing.
I believe if we were to take on a specific topic as district action, yes, it would fall within this. In terms of the expression of concern or request for something, I don't believe that falls. I mean, I'm in 9.3 right now. Is that what you were referencing as well?
I was thinking either 9.1 or 9.3.
So when I look at the overall policy, it does state the superintendent shall ensure that the community is informed about the condition of the district and engaged in defining and supporting its direction. So from that, my sense is that yes, those ideas that come from the community should also be a component. So we might not have called it out. That might be a gap in what we have in the policy that we need to address.
And so can you define more what you believe the gap is, just so we can document that? Because I want to make sure I have a clear understanding of what we believe the gap is here.
I'm going to let Leah attempt to do that. Director Choi?
I guess the gap would be each of these policy statements and the interpretations are very specific about existing district efforts and programs and activities, and it's lacking the potential or the concerns, right, that are coming from our community. So how do we follow up or communicate and address those? The communication piece.
So is it, how do we respond to?
So I think the perfect example from today's public comment, just because it just happened, would be there seems to be confusion about the logistical issues around later school start times. So that, considering the push that has happened from the community for this initiative, and yet the confusion surrounding what the logistical issues are there logistical issues? Clearly there's a lack of communication then.
And so is the board seeking to create a parameter for us to operate in that when a community member brings a request for change, that it's documented? I would also express that I would want to be careful about making sure that we, as we are thinking about community requests, there are some that have greater levels of access to us. And let's take this school start time topic. Yes, that has received a lot of voice right now. We've responded to that, and I would imagine that that would end up on this report next year because it's something that we've said that we would take action on and do work on. We receive requests for change often.
So if my interpretation of the question is more around the bigger picture rather than a specific issue, and that the systematic flow of information for something like that, it's the actually, I mean, it's symptom, not disease. It's about how do we potentially improve the not just timely flow, but the timely the FAQ, the timely finding of information that's already happened, because every year we've got new freshman parents. And every year they discover that high school starts earlier than they really enjoy, especially if they're in jazz band. And so it's something where this is part of the interpretation in 9.1 around the timely flow of information. This is really the recurrent information so that there is an ongoing challenge which we haven't been able to solve, that there is an easy way of finding here's what's been done and here's where we're at. So that, I guess it's basically the website update is part of what this all comes back to, but the FAQ for parents. So if that, does that?
Yes, I think so. But I guess I'm just, like Siri was saying, we state it in the overarching policy, that the entire community is formed about the condition of the district and is engaged, right, in defining and supporting its direction. And if we have community members who want to be engaged but don't know how, or don't feel as if they are being heard, or don't feel that they can be effective, then are we achieving what the policy is set out to do?
So there's multiple ways to engage in defining the direction of the district. And one of those ways is individual voices providing input and comment. And then there comes a point where we may ask some questions of the community. We will probably do a different type of survey regarding school start times using a different platform where we actually seek comments from our community and have the community actually provide voice for those comments. It helps us actually elevate what are the true feelings of our community around a topic versus sending out just a traditional survey where we say, you know, what's your level of interest in, let's say, school start times? And on a 5-point scale, people are rating. And so by using a different type of tool, we can elevate voice. And so to me, that's engaging our community. And I believe, tell me if this is the question being asked, is the question, do we proactively put that in the monitoring report that this is work we're doing? Or is the monitoring report the look back in terms of the year's prior work? And so typically the monitoring reports have been the year's prior work as opposed to what's the look ahead for the district's work. So if there's an additional parameter here, I'm fine documenting that and trying to develop policy language around that. I just want to make sure I'm clear as to what the board is hoping for.
Director Stewart?
I think what both Chris and Leah are getting to, at least part of it, is that, as you say, as a new freshman comes in and discovers the new start times or whatever else is different, we have a propensity to say, well, we've done it before, or we went through this before about 4 or 5 years ago, and we discovered X, Y, and Z. But it's never apparent, or it's not easy for that parent or that student to go back and find X, Y, and Z. And the question is it still relevant? We have a great propensity in this district to say, well, it's on our website if you just look. Well, to be quite frank, it's not the most navigable, information-friendly website that I've seen. And I'm no expert on websites, but I am fairly good at communications. And I think we seem to be in a mode of only reacting as being proactive in a way that is more meaningful to people. If we've got 2 or 3 meetings in a row where start times is an issue, and we just keep taking more questions and more comments about it without addressing that there will be a meeting on X, Y, or Z, whether it's start times, whether it's equity, whatever else it might be, there needs to be a certain break point at which you say, okay, we've heard all this comment. If we kick it down the road further, it's going to look like we're ignoring the parents, the students, the community. And I'm afraid that's where a lot of parents are right now. And we need to be a lot more proactive in our outreach to them, not in offering them a new survey, but being able to say, look, we've heard what you're saying. We're going to report on it in 8 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. And here's what we're going to be able to tell you. Now, we're not telling you we're going to have a new program necessarily, but we'll be able to at least point you, here's what we've done so far, here's what we've come up to, and here's been the roadblocks, or this is the method we now see maybe at the light at the end of the tunnel. Not necessarily, something that you're committing to, that this is exactly what we're going to do. No. Because we all know that as you start to look at a new issue, all sorts of other intangibles start to fade into it. So I'd like to just have that in your thought process as you think you're communicating with the public.
Director Choi, I don't fully understand the interest yet. Was it, so in 9.1, there's one of the clauses, it's a little clunky. One of the clauses is assure blank, 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 appropriate input. And I think the interest I've heard, and what I heard, and again, a reference to tonight, was parents feeling as though their input wasn't being heard, or there wasn't a mechanism for the district to receive that input clearly. Was it around that? Or am I way off base as to
I
what
was
you're?
more referring to the part of the comment, and I'm just using this as an example because it
Yeah,
was
I
given
understand.
to us today.
Yeah.
I was more referring to the part of the comment when she mentioned, is there some sort of a logistics issue? Or that's what some people are saying. It sounds like that might be a problem, but is that even a problem? Like, clearly there's, and she's referring to a Facebook group of 80 parents who are confused and they don't know why we can't do later start times, right? And so I feel like that's the example of the communication gap then.
Yeah, it's interesting in that it's not. I mean, I guess it's a communication gap. It's also an information gap too, right? It's because when the last time that the district looked at this, it was communicated, but that was 2019. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Because I remember 2019. And so those who are this is now, as Chris just referenced, those who have a freshman in high school now, this is a very important issue, and it may not have been on everyone's radar in 2019. So the thinking and the work that went into that in 2019. So it's not just. Yeah, so I think you're right. It's a function of communicate. It's a function of either recommunicating or assuring that information is received, which I guess is what communication is.
It's also a matter of, if it's something that happened 2, 3, 10 years ago, don't assume that everyone is going to have the capacity to go back and look into the cobwebs of our records to find out what we did, what we call the logistical problems, what were the actual problems. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, an update. It's for the transportation issue, it's for the inclusion issue, any of the ones that have taken more than a little bit of time to mold or to reassess. And I think it's the idea of updating folks. When you start to hear enough of a, I won't say an uproar, but at least enough of a cloud of discussion, there needs to be updates. Don't assume that someone can go back and say, oh yeah, that's what happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And God knows we've increased our population by how much in the last 2 to 3 years? Issues change. Legislators change.
So, I guess, here, Dr. Holman, you're about to
Well, I just,
offer something.
Director Bleasner and I are continuing to do some policy work. I wonder if she and I just take a look at OE9 to see, given this conversation, are there updates to the overall policy that we could bring to the board for consideration?
Okay. That works. Any other questions on the report presented tonight?
Just-
Director Stewart?
Just one more comment. Other organizations have basically what they call sunset provisions. And so if an action or report was done in X year, then it was automatically mandated that that issue come up X number of years afterwards to see, one, has the situation changed? Have our abilities to address the situation changed? And do we need to reaffirm or trash the old position? And I think that, and to be quite frank, sunsetting gets rid of a lot of garbage that may have been a momentary issue that was addressed in a more productive fashion. But it also is a way of making sure that the parents who lived 4 states away when we enacted it, or didn't have a kid in school period, or weren't even married perhaps, can be updated. I know it's a pain, but it ain't easy. It's communications. It's not rocket science. It's just talking to folks.
Okay, any other questions on the report? Director Carlson?
Not a question, a comment. Section 9.4 is about the summary of district operations prepared. And I want to say that that is wildly understated. That is one of the most useful documents that is generated by the administration annually for our community as a readable version about where we are, where we're trying to go, how we're trying to get there, and how we're doing at it, plus trying to understand our budget. So I just want to commend you for the fact that this, even though it's a very understated piece of the report, is an incredibly important part of communicating with our community.
Okay, seeing there are no other questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the monitoring report for OE9 as presented.
Move approval.
Second?
Moved by Director Carlson, seconded by Director Bleasner. Any additional comment on the monitoring report? Director Stewart?
Given the comments we've been hearing, I'm having a hard time agreeing with the compliance at this point. If we've had so many people that are not able to comprehend our communications, to understand where we're at, why we're at it, and where we're going, can we really be in compliance? Yes, technically, perhaps we're in compliance with the words, but are we in compliance in an understandable manner that is actionable? I'm not sure we are.
Any other comment? Director
Are there any
Bleasner?
specific policies in which you're stating that are not in compliance?
I'm talking about the discussion overall, how we failed in communicating.
I do not agree that we had a discussion that we were failing communicating. We were looking for areas in which we could strengthen our communication and different components.
That's a different way of
So the
putting it.
question that is in regards to this is there a piece to the policy, and would you recommend an amendment then?
Any other comments on the monitoring report tonight?
I'd actually like to call out in 9.3, the list of strategic partnerships and that developing connections. I think that is the indicator of compliance is at least one formal partnership, and it is clear that the district has been working very hard to establish stronger community connections. I think that's a strong piece because it is sort of the whole environment we work in which we engage. The community is another component. There are definitely things missing here. Of other work we're doing, work with city councils, work with legislature, work with other nonprofits, with other groups. But just wanted to call that out of the continued work and building that out pretty significantly over time.
I just wanted to say one other thing. I think that there is a sentiment in the community about communication, but I don't think that it's a reflection necessarily of the district's communication. Over the past couple years, there's just been so much going on that has had to be communicated from so many different areas of our lives that it's been a lot of information to take and a lot of changes, a lot of last minute changes that have had to happen. And anytime that happens, I feel like there is an unease surrounding any communication that comes out. And therefore, I would like to say that I appreciate the efforts that have been made by the district in the area of communication, especially with all the changes that have had to happen.
Okay. Director Bleasner, and then I'll go.
Okay, so in relation to that, as well as just the additional components added to try to reach families where English is not the first language, and being able to do that through multiple modalities. I think that is a big component, being able to really engage our community and families in a way that's culturally responsive, at least in starting to address a language barrier that might exist, and bringing a little more ability to access. So appreciate those different components. The texting that's finally get in, be great to hear sort of an update on how the cell phone text has worked, and if families feel that they are being able to communicate more comfortably within their own language and feel able to be part of the community.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, I think I really appreciate the efforts and look for continued efforts on. I was thinking about, in terms of our partnership with Eastside Pathways is evidence of this. How we've partnered with them to be more culturally responsive in how we communicate, and communicating in different languages and through video. It's pretty neat. Also want to say kudos to everyone on staff for the shift that we had to make and made well to communicating through on YouTube, all sorts of different means. If you look at that, as that progressed, the number of viewers that we had for each one kept increasing. It shows that people were finding it, and they found it meaningful or entertaining enough to stick with it. So I think that's, habits change for people too. And so as people find that works, I think it's something we should think about continuing doing. It sounds like we are. The comment I will make around communication is that's not reflect. I find that I believe I'm going to vote that we're in compliance, but the district's website had some technical issues over this last year, where it was not accessible or was down for some time. That's a place where parents, everyone goes to find information, and it's a problem when it's not available. So just something to think about and look at for this next year. Director Stewart?
I'm going to probably vote for compliance, but I'm going to vote for the fact that we've got the tools there. I just don't know if we're using the tools in a way that they are being listened to, or they couldn't be more effective. We've talked about trying to make sure that we don't save a conclusion to hear the news on page 10, as opposed to putting it up front so that people can say, okay, I found it, I've done it, and if I want to get all the details and the reasoning behind it, I can read the rest of it. But I think we've got the tools there. I'm just not sure we're using them as well as we could be to the benefit of our parents and our students.
Any additional comment from the board on the monitoring report?
The only other question we might have as some indicator, as you listen to this, is what is the perception of the community in regards to communication?
Yeah.
I don't see that in any of these indicators as I go through here, and perhaps that's one of the pieces that might be missing to get an overall picture.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say this, as we think about our ongoing parent perception survey, understanding kind of at a broad level, what are our parents saying about our communications, I think would be helpful to kind of embed in here. So definitely a question that we want to seek from our community.
I agree. Any other comment?
We've said in the past that we don't monitor the social media because there's too much noise from it. It's just the most active people or whatever. For us to ignore social media, to see the sparks of a new issue that's going on, to see how broad or narrow it is, to see You can even see when, in the beginnings of it, who's organizing this issue. And is this really something of broad appeal, or is it being molded? And I think we really need to start being more not only proactive, but also monitoring the discussions about us. To say we have a Facebook page, we have a this page, we have a YouTube page. It's not enough if we're not also looking to see what's being said about you. It's very egotistical almost that we're ignoring the rest of the world. And that's from a non-techie.
Yeah, I'll have to check with staff to see if we're ignoring social media or not. That's a good question.
Okay, any other comment? Great.
Can I
Yes.
just throw one, sorry?
Yeah.
In thinking about that piece, as I read through those policies, we don't speak to alternative form of communication much beyond email and the website. We do add texting in there, so perhaps we need to be broadening that a little bit more to include the other forms.
I think we also learned during the pandemic that we have families that don't have internet access. So if we are solely communicating via email and website, then how are they receiving information?
Okay, the motion is to approve monitoring report for OE9 as presented. All those in favor, and I'll pay better attention this time. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Any opposed? Did anyone abstain? Okay. The motion passes unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the board summaries for the monitoring reports. In our packet, there are summaries for monitoring reports for OE3, OE7, R1, and R2. And those were monitored by the board in February and in March. I want to thank Teresa for getting those summaries ready. And then I reviewed them and finalized them, and they're in the packet that way. Going forward, now that we have a process that largely takes me out of it, we will not be as dilatory, and I think the idea is that we'll have them back at the meeting that follows. And we will, for now, keep the approval of these on the non-consent agenda. We can look at moving that to consent agenda potentially in the future, but I think it's appropriate to have start a practice of this first on the non-consent agenda. So those summaries are meant to capture and memorialize the board's the discussion, for example, the discussion that you heard tonight around the review of the policies. And it doesn't necessarily capture each individual board member's comments, but the voice of the board. And so with that said, any questions on the monitoring reports? I'm sorry, the summaries of the monitoring reports?
Is the plan to adopt each one of them, approve each one of them individually or as a group?
You know, for tonight, let's just do it. Unless there's a discussion on any individually, I would just take them all as a group.
So my only discussion on the operational expectations 3 and 7, I don't see a board summary that was written. It's under board findings. It says a summary of board findings will follow at a later date
Hold on.
on OE3.
So in 3.1 so 3.1, you have the superintendent interpretation compliance evidence and then board findings, and there's information written there.
Absolutely, and I can see that under the board findings for each specific policy.
Yeah.
Part of the piece of writing the summary at the very start of it is I don't have to flip through each one of those, and you can highlight whatever key things of a summary.
Maybe.
When doing the evaluation of the summative at the full year end, it is highly beneficial to have a summary that sort of pulls that together, where you say both the strengths of the things you call out as a highlight and the things where there might be additional work, and you just have it in the summary piece at the very start.
Okay, let me.
It works very well from a sort of concept. I actually highlight that when writing the monitoring report from the superintendent side. If you even provided where you saw where some of the highlights were throughout this policy and any areas that's also beneficial to do, even while in compliance.
Okay. We'll try it for the next one. Yeah,
Right,
okay.
I'm fine going, but yes, I did see that it was there.
That's your point. Any other comments or questions? I'll take comments and questions on all four together right now, if anyone has anything.
I would say thank you in putting together the summaries, especially for R1, and that was very helpful to have, doing the different components there and breaking that out. The other question I would have is if our superintendent finds that adequate in which to be able to go forward and sort of working in those areas, if there's any additional findings or comments that are needed.
Not at this time.
Okay.
Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve the board summaries for OE3, OE7, R1, and R2 as presented.
Move approval of all of them.
Thanks.
Second.
Moved by Director Carlson, seconded by Director Choi, that the board approve the summaries for OE3, OE7, R1, and R2. Any additional comment? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman, do you have a superintendent report for us tonight?
I do, and it's in relation to the proclamations that the board presented tonight. It, as I think about these proclamations that the board brings forward, there's all sorts of data, information, and people that those are in relation to. And so I just brought some information about each of those tonight. Want to celebrate our programs and staff a little bit. When you think about Arts in Education Month, why do we have arts in education? It really is part of our curriculum. There's been many studies that have looked at what are the benefits that students and really humans receive when they participate in the arts. And it's either viewing the arts or creating in the arts. And it elevates things like improved memory, it lowers stress, makes people feel more socially connected. When we think about the core standards of arts, there's national standards. And when I reviewed them, it was very interesting to think, you could almost eliminate the word arts, and these are the critical thinking skills and activities that we want our students to be participating in. Let me read them to you because it's kind of fascinating to think about, how are the arts really helping us in our core content areas of literacy, mathematics, and those types of things. Generate and conceptualize artistic ideas and work. Organize and develop ideas and work. Refine and complete artistic work. Select, analyze, and interpret. Convey meaning through presentation. Perceive and analyze artistic work. Interpret intent and meaning. Apply criteria to evaluate work. Make art by synthesizing and relating knowledge and personal experiences. Deepen understanding by relating artistic ideas to societal, historical, and cultural context. You think about those as standards, those truly do help support all of the content areas that our students are learning in. And then when I looked at our high school arts courses, these are some of the things that I found. Intro to art, painting, drawing, work around 2D and 3D, sculpture, ceramics and pottery, art history, video, graphic productions and design, theater and drama, musical history, theater and theory, band, both concert, symphonic and jazz, orchestra, including chamber, ensemble, wind and string, guitar, drumming, piano, choir, chamber, lyrica and jazz, and music technology. So you think about how these not only are supporting our core curriculum, but these are places where students find themselves and truly allow them to connect to their school environment, which we know allows them to engage in their community. So Arts in Education Month really is a celebration of students being connected. It's a celebration of students finding their voice and students truly becoming academic scholars. The next piece was School Nutrition Employees Week of May 2nd through 6th. And I asked for a little information from the team. And when you think about the, who's working in school nutrition services in Lake Washington, we have senior supervisors at our base kitchens and at our high schools. We have supervisors. We have leads at our elementary level. We have cooks, food prep helpers, and food service workers. And in regards to those that are supervising at our base kitchens, our high schools, or locally, they really truly are leading the day-to-day operations at an individual school. Our food services supervisors or leads must ensure high standards for safety and sanitation and meal quality. In addition, they supervise site employees, communicate with department administrators, account for meal service and a la carte sales, and ensure adequate inventory is available. And then our folks that are doing the work of serving and preparing for our students, our cooks, our food prep helpers, and our food service workers. They're at our individual schools and are responsible for the preparation and serving of all menu items. Additional responsibilities include cleaning, dishwashing, as well as care of equipment. But we also know that each of these positions also plays a role in the experience of all students at all levels through positive interactions, encouraging healthy nutrition, and providing a consistent breakfast and lunch program at our schools. So currently we have 120 what we call frontline workers. And just a little bit of data about a few of them. We have 2 employees that have served in our food services for over 30 years, 31 and 35 years. We have 7 employees that have served between 20 and 30 years, 7 employees that have served between 15 and 20 years, and 11 employees that have served between 10 and 15 years. Sodexo has been a partner of the school district for over 40 years, and that's through multiple times of going out to bid for our nutrition services contract. We know that between September and March of this year, we've served over 130,000 breakfasts, and we've served over 1.4 million lunches. So we thank our food services employees. And the final proclamation this evening was about Teachers Appreciation Week and National Teachers Day, both recognized across the country. We employ over 1,900 certificated teachers that provide for the teaching and learning services of our students each and every day. This job is a job that has always come with unique challenges, but we also know that as of late, it's been more difficult and more challenging. They added words to their lexicon such as remote, hybrid, synchronous, asynchronous, concurrent, and in-person. Never before did a teacher ever think that the word in-person would have the meaning it does. But you think about what it means now, it truly does describe a form of teaching and learning. And so when students return to full-time in-person learning with different levels of skills, and they continue to respond to the ever-changing needs of our students. And so we know that our students across the country return from the pandemic differently than our teachers were used to. They are consistently on an ongoing basis learning what the new profile of our students are and truly responding to their needs. Teachers have always worn multiple hats. It's why many of us got into the profession. Knowing which hat to wear at different points in time is what makes a teacher's job so challenging, yet so rewarding. Meeting the needs of diverse sets of students is exciting and rewarding because it isn't simple and it's always fun. And so we thank our teachers and we celebrate them this first week in May.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Holman. The next item on the agenda is Public and Community Affairs. Director Bleasner, first, do you have anything to report?
Nothing new at this very moment, no.
Great. And
Although I think Director Stewart might have something, because I think you just turned on your mic.
I guess before Director Stewart, for those who would like to view a lengthy update on what occurred during the legislative session, you can watch our last meeting in which Barbara and Siri provided a update on what occurred at the session and how it impacted the district. Any other board members with anything for public or community affairs tonight? Okay. The next item on the agenda is an equity update. The board is committed to providing an equity update as part of our agenda on every meeting going forward. So tonight, I can report that the board met before this meeting tonight to continue reviewing the indicators. In fact, we completed our first pass of the indicators for operational expectation 14, which is the anti-racism and equity, inclusion and opportunity in education policy. I may have jumbled those words, but those are the words in the policy. And if you want to view that meeting is available on the board's website for on-demand viewing. We will be meeting again for a second pass of the indicators for OE 14, most likely at our second meeting in May on May 23rd during the study session. And we'll continue working with those indicators with the goal of completing work on those indicators by this June, and then monitoring OE 14 for the first time in August. For those who, after viewing that meeting, have questions or comments for the board, please write us at boardmembers@lwsd.org. Does anyone else have anything else for equity update tonight? Okay. The next item on the agenda is board comments. Any board member comments for tonight? Director Carlson and Director Stewart.
Director Stewart, go for it.
Okay, a couple of items. We commissioned and received a report on transportation and start times. I've seen 4 brightly colored charts. I haven't seen any analysis. I'd like to have a report in the near future on transportation and start times, what can be done, what can't be done, what did our analysis really show other than the fact that it made it into a nice chart. 2, as we progress in our inclusion training with classes with the special needs students, there's a lot of apprehension out in our community with our teachers, with our parents, that all of a sudden we're going to flip a switch and all the kids are going to be melded together and there's no provision for my child, your child, whose child. It's the fear of the unknown as opposed to the fear of what we're changing to. Can kill a project faster than anything. I recall early on talking to teachers saying, if I know what's coming, if I know how it's going to be evolved, what am I expected to do? How am I going to, and we all know that as you experiment with something, it evolves. So what it looked like 6 months ago is not what it may look like today or 6 months from now. But keep the teachers informed. We need to have basically an internal sales force to sell the idea, sell the concept, and sell how it's going to succeed to the teachers. Basically, the principals, I think, would be the primary salespeople, to be quite frank. But we need to start doing that now, not a month before it starts, not 3 months before it starts, but if we're a year to 2 years out, by God, we need to be doing it now. That's how you prepare for something. Because right now, there is such a gap of information, and it's becoming to the point where they're ready to kill the project before it gets completed, to be quite frank, just by virtue of their fear. And third, last January, maybe it was December, we talked about the Emerson Daycare Center, and we talked about its possible demise at one point, and it was resurrected. We've talked about how we will be making it on a self-sustaining basis. That's one word I've heard. We haven't seen an update on what's going on, and what do we mean by a self-sustaining? Does that mean that students are all of a sudden going to be charged if they want to bring their child to class? Are we looking at the possibility if you have a student who has siblings that they're responsible for, that maybe they might have a spot in there too? I could understand the idea of looking at the rates that perhaps we're charging teachers and looking to see what the going rate is around. That's one thing that you can be looking at. It's, again, a question of, is it a service really, or is it a method to make money? It's not. It's a service, and I think we need to continue looking at it. Nothing else in our district, I think, is looked at as having to be self-sustaining when it comes to what we're providing students and some staff. So those are my comments.
Okay, any other board member comments tonight? Director Carlson?
So, it's interesting, I just do want to briefly flog this horse one more time. On school start times, if you go on our website, and you search school start times, it directs you to December 2019 update, where our previous superintendent announced that for the 2020-2021 school year, we were not going to change start times. But part of what is perhaps not obvious to my colleagues who may not have high schoolers at the moment is that the last 2 years, until they came back in person, we've got sophomores who had no idea how early school started. Right. Because we were able to, through distance learning, to start at a much more reasonable hour for a teenager. I mean, rolling out of bed 5 minutes before class was a delight, for mine at least. I just want to say that this is something where it's not just the parents who are discovering it anew, it's the students, where a large cohort of them suddenly discovered this high school starts early. And obviously many of them don't like it, which is nothing new in that story. But if you go back to our December 2019 update, the problem with what's presented there is that it's a bunch of bullet points that don't get into the details of what were the factors. It says, the current research on adolescent health does not detail what that current research is. That research does argue for later start times, but the impacts on current family schedules, that's an absolutely value-neutral statement. It doesn't tell us why. So it would be really valuable if we as a district could put together a synthesis of the last time we visited this. Because for some of my colleagues on the board, you're going to see this issue once every 4 to 5 years for the rest of your career. It happens over and over and over, and you go at it, you try to solve it, and then something doesn't work. But it is something where having something that says, here's what we did last time, and here's the variables that would have to change for us to change the decision that was made, would be incredibly helpful for the community to be able to read as a synthesis of, we've actually worked on this before. That said, there is stuff that's going to change. There are things that could change dramatically in the next year, the most notable being if the House gets behind this permanent daylight savings time. That is a can of worms that will... Anyway, there are things that could precipitate a need to change some stuff. If that happens, we would have to reopen the system and take a look at it. But for now, I think really literally going back, and the superintendent's message in December of 2019 mentions the recommendations from the School Start Times Advisory Committee. But there is not a link to the recommendations of the School Start Times Advisory Committee, which I remember as a document. If people could see that document, I think they would have a better sense for, this isn't something where we are just cruel, sadistic administrators who really like getting up early. And if the students think they get up early, the hour that the teachers have to get up to be ahead of the students is painful. But it really would help people see that this is not something where we're just ignoring the masses. This is something that has been visited carefully. That does not mean we don't need to revisit it carefully, but it is certainly not something that's been imposed arbitrarily. And so this is something where I also actually kind of wanted to say that Mark had a good idea in terms of sunsets on something or times to revisit. This is one where, yes, it comes back every 5 years, but to say, hey, next year we're planning to tackle it again, to reopen it and see if there's anything that has changed fundamentally, is a valid thing to consider putting into that summary statement from, here's what we decided. And the best part is, if we do decide to change it, I promise you that 5 years from now, there will be a bunch of parents who are angry at us for changing it. So again, it's something where no matter what you've done, having that synthesis of why you did what you did so that people can find it would be invaluable. So like I said, I'm flogging a dead horse, but it's really something where the community could use that access to that previous round of this, or even the one before that, because I don't recall them being all that different. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Any last board member comments tonight? Director Stewart?
One last comment on the beating the dead horse. Other states have had this problem, and they have legislated what it will be. So if we don't solve it for ourselves and for our students, someone's going to impose upon us, and it's probably going to be far more difficult to implement than if we'd come up with a solution ourselves.
Any other board member comment tonight? Director Beleasner?
Actually, I just want to say I had the opportunity to go to NSBA in April with Director Choice, and we spent 3 days in San Diego with school directors from around the nation and learning a few more items and pieces. I did send a email for two. There were actually two. So there's a presentation on there, which was actually probably the best one I went to, which was on student representatives and student voice. It actually issues a bit of, when there's a new issue brought forward from students, how do you go forward and sort of work with that from a policy side? So this was a school district in Oregon. I'm blanking on the name right now. Tualatin. And so I've sent you the presentation. It sort of walks through 5 different policy things that the students brought to the board, and then the process they sort of work through to help shepherd the students through how do you go through making those questions and having that policy brought forward and discussed at the board level. So I thought as we work towards student representatives and putting that forward, and we talk about, effectiveness, and these weren't their student reps who were doing this. This was actually Student Advisory Council did one of them, and then they had other student groups who brought forward. So it was on feminine hygiene products in the bathrooms was one that was brought forward. Athletic fees, getting rid of all those fees, and how could you do it? And it actually ended up being a 3-step process they had to work through and have discussions around. But I do think it's a good way to sort of think about how we utilize that student representative experience and that voice to not only improve what we do within our school district to really meet the needs of our students, but also engage them directly in the civic process and how to go through it, because often you don't know who's the right person to talk to. So they do come to the board, and then how do you shepherd that through the system and bring it forward? So I think of the students we had here in beginning of April about flying the pride flag. And so my question there, and I had sent that to you, Dr. Holman, just to say, where are we on that, and how are we helping support those students in bringing that policy or that question through the system, and doesn't need a policy change at the board, but really working with them directly and being very proactive in that approach. So look through that presentation, just through the different things. It's an opportunity to talk to the board members as well if we wanted to reach out to them sort of about what they did. But it was really one of the highlights of the conference when I was there. There was one other, artificial intelligence. So you looked at me funny about that, but I did appreciate the presentation was around that we need to be thinking about artificial intelligence and how it impacts our kids, because the reality is that's the world they're in. Algorithms happen everywhere. And so their actual example was, if you're writing a resume, often it's AI that's reading it first, and you have to find the right keywords. So We need to be thinking about how we introduce our kids to the algorithms are only as good as the data we put into them. So the problems we have with facial recognition, if you're not using the diversity of facial options within our community and the fact that it doesn't work. And so there was a variety of different ways, and I don't know if we're thinking about this, of how we do this. They actually said Alexa. It's fascinating. Whole thing with Alexa, because you can program Alexa. So you could do things where they actually have to program it, and if you program it wrong, it will tell you the wrong answer. So you actually get them to start thinking through what are the impacts of AI and how you need to recognize those sorts of things. So just wanted to put that out. I sent all the data, all the resources that were available to it that you could look through. Google Draw was one of my favorites to play on. It's actually, basically playing Pictionary with the computer. But it shows you how it figured it out so that you can see what it was using in which to form its questions. So those are some of the cool highlights. Recommend,
Would you also like to say something about electric buses?
I will let you say that about electric buses if you'd like.
You attended that, or you had that conversation.
So there were actually two different conversations. They have all the vendors there. So there's a huge push through the infrastructure bill. So you asked about the, federal legislation, different things. There's a big piece of the Build Back Better. Actually, I don't think that's this one. It's the infrastructure bill. There's a huge component for funding electric buses for schools specifically through the EPA. And so had an opportunity to talk with a vendor who was there and working out, and I don't know where we're at in considering how do you phase in electric buses into your system, especially in regards to the infrastructure that currently exists. And we did have a change in our legislature through being able to ask for infrastructure as part of our levies now as well. It's also an opportunity to partner with King County because they're looking at infrastructure pieces. Our cities are looking at infrastructure. So there are ways in which to look at how you phase that project in over time. And we think about it. And as we talk about sustainability and the importance of that, and we had our students here. So that's the other piece I think about. Our students came and talked to us about electric buses specifically. So again, there's another component that we could look at. How do we bring that forward to a full circle and cycle coming around? So I do think that's another exciting piece of possibilities that were out there that we were able to learn about. And the other one, which I've been told I sent the email 3 times to some people because I really thought it was good. I had the opportunity to talk to an architect who actually had done some mixed-use school studies at looking at putting a school within an office building or within a retail space or in these other locations. The one he tried to do, unfortunately, COVID hit and it sort of put that one down. But he did do a case study, and so I forward you the case studies of the different places in New York, Toronto, Hawaii, and different locations where they have put in these types of schools as a way to just keep people thinking of, well, what does that mean to put a school into an urban environment and into a different setting? And these are high schools through elementary schools. So it's kind of exciting to start thinking about that. So that's the value of kind of being there, being able to explore all these other options. Do you have more to add to that?
I would just say that we had the opportunity to attend different sessions and divide and conquer, but there was still so much information that we were not able to listen to and attend. I would highly encourage the rest of the board as well as the superintendent, if he can, to join us at these conferences because I felt there was a wealth of knowledge and it was quite inspiring to hear some of the stories from other districts around the country and what they're doing and what they're achieving. And I thought it was a very good, awesome opportunity.
Thank you.
So read those presentations. They really are good.
Thank you for sharing them, too. Director Carlson?
And I just wanted to say thank you for sharing the knowledge that Alexa is programmable. I think the notion that students are going to learn from that, the wrong side, that students are going to learn to program Alexa to give the wrong answer to their classmates, that is going to encourage them to understand how Alexa works. So I thought that was wonderful and very interesting, but I was unaware that that was possible. So when I read that, I was like, this is interesting. But the actual presentation wasn't available, which was key.
No.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask them directly for it. They
That would
didn't
be
upload
lovely.
the docs.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the final agenda item for the meeting. The board plans to meet again on May 9 in here at the Resource Center with a study session at 5 p.m., followed by a board meeting at 7 p.m. And then again on May 23rd with a study session at 5 p.m., board meeting followed at 7 p.m. The board will now meet in executive session. Are we able to go into that right now? Okay. The board will now meet in executive session for the purpose to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase. The board will meet in executive session for 30 minutes. Following the executive session, the April 25, 2022 board meeting will be adjourned. No formal board action will be taken. The board will now convene into executive session it is 8:47. We will convene at
8:55.
8:55.